I'm carrying Lucy's fiance's baby.
With only 3 months until my wedding, my sister, held by my fiance, makes a terrifying confession. I looked up to the sky, feeling I knew it. After all, my sister is a predator who always wants what others have and doesn't choose her means to get them. In my family, it's settled that my sister and my ex-fiance will marry, and it's unthinkable for me to object. My whole family is so crazy, I really feel like I'm going mad. My name is Lucy, I'm turning 30 this year, and I'm a sports instructor who loves jogging. I've loved sports since I was young, and I consider my current job, where I get to teach what I love, to be my true calling. I jog on the levee before work or on my days off, so regardless of the season, my skin is always tanned. I prioritize comfort over style, wearing my hair in a single tie and only wearing a shiny ring on my left finger. That ring was given to me last month by my fiance, Rick, who proposed. Rick, who is the same age as me, was a high school classmate, and we became close after a chance reunion after becoming working adults. His parents run a somewhat well-known company locally, and Rick is their successor. People envy me for marrying him, but to me it's just pressure. However, when I first met his parents during our marriage introduction, they were very gentle and genuinely happy about me joining their family. I was relieved to become relatives with such good people. Now it's time for Rick to come greet my family.
Lucy, your fiancé will be coming over, and Mary will also be there.
Really? The day before the meeting, as I was helping clean the room, my mom casually dropped a bombshell. Wasn't Mary supposed to be at work?
Mary took the day off because she wanted to meet your fiancé. She really loves you, you know.
I see. I managed a strained smile at my mom's carefree words. Mary is my sister, 3 years younger than me, and the person I struggle with the most in this world. Unlike me, Mary is fashionable and charmingly cute. But the problem is her personality. Mary has always wanted what others have. Being closest to her, I was an easy target. Since she was about 3, Mary has always coveted my belongings. Whenever I got new clothes or toys, she would cry, saying, "I want that too." My parents would tell me, "You're the older sister, so give it to her," and they would give my stuff to Mary. I would be left with hand-me-downs or whatever was available. Even the pencil case and desk I got when I started school ended up being taken by Mary, who had just started kindergarten. Luckily, she didn't get my backpack because there will be cuter ones in 3 years, but instead, my parents bought her a cute bag. It seems Mary enjoys the process of getting things. Once she has them, she quickly loses interest. My parents looked troubled, saying, "We bought it for her after all," but they never scold Mary. Turning my back on the study desk that nobody uses, I did my homework at the dining table. Mary's predatory habit was evident even in kindergarten and school. Every time there was trouble, our parents always sided with Mary. Eventually, Mary began to steal boyfriends. By the time she entered middle school, she was famously known among the girls as the predator. There were girls who confronted Mary, but most of the boys sided with her, and it seems many just cried themselves to sleep. Even as her sister, I can see that Mary is a kind of genius. With strategies to create villains and the skill to cry at the right moment, Mary has used tears to manipulate our parents and boys to get everything she wants in life. I went to a college far enough from home that I couldn't commute. It was all to get away from my devil-like sister. And then I got a job at a nationwide sports gym in the same state as the college. Rick, who was a high school classmate, joined the gym, and we felt it was fate to meet like this in such a place. Rick worked for a different company from his parents, and I heard that when he turned 30, he would return to his hometown and take over the family business. Honestly, I didn't want to go back to my hometown where Mary was, and becoming a CEO's wife felt daunting. So, when Rick proposed, I hesitated a lot, but in the end, I decided to be with him. If I'm 30, Mary would be 27. She should be a grown adult by then, and surely she wouldn't engage in such childish behavior as wanting others' things anymore. Believing that, I decided to move back to my hometown when we got married. Still, I couldn't shake off the unease of having Mary and Rick meet face to face. And on the day of the meeting,
Lucy,
Mary, with her long, beautiful hair and a white dress fluttering, came running to hug me. I hadn't seen her much since graduating from high school, and I was taken aback by her unchanged girl-like cuteness and sweet scent.
you should have introduced me to your boyfriend sooner, Lucy.
Sorry.
Nice to meet you. I'm Mary, her sister.
I'm Rick. Nice to meet you, too.
I'm so happy to have a big brother for the first time, Rick.
As Mary smiled softly, I could hear Rick swallow hard. It was foolish of me to let them meet. Mary hasn't changed at all from back then. I only had a bad feeling. And bad feelings tend to come true quickly.
Sorry, Lucy. I'm carrying Rick's baby.
A year after the proposal and 3 months before the wedding, Mary made a horrifying confession. Of course, I was shocked but not surprised. It makes sense. Why wouldn't Mary want a guy who is somewhat good-looking and the heir to a well-known local company? It was all my mistake. As I was overwhelmed with despair, Mary's big eyes welled up with tears.
I'm sorry, Lucy. Rick is your fiance, but I just couldn't stop my feelings for him.
What?
It's not Mary's fault. The real sinner here is me for falling in love with you.
Rick.
I couldn't say anything back to them as they gazed at each other entranced. I was surprisingly calm despite not showing any shock or disturbance, which seemed odd to Rick.
What's the matter? Are you too shocked to speak?
Well, something like that. But my shock was more about being reminded of my shallowness in trusting Mary than losing Rick. Rick frowned, obviously not amused by my attitude.
You're really not cute, even at a time like this. Normally, people would cling and beg not to be left.
Well, maybe.
That's why I didn't want to marry you. I proposed because I felt obligated as a man after being together until we were 30.
Seriously? You're right. Who was the one who proposed tearfully at that beautiful park at night? Who was desperately convincing me when I was reluctant to move back to our hometown?
Rick just cares too much about his responsibilities. He should value his own feelings more.
Mary touched his arm gently. Rick also looked pleased as he took Mary's hand.
See, Mary comforts me like this, compared to you.
What are you talking about? Sure, I don't have the cuteness like Mary, but I never neglected Rick. And weren't you the one who said our straightforward relationship was comforting? This whole mess is Mary's fault. While whispering sweet words, she must have twisted our memories into something awful. It's terrifying how manipulative my sister can be.
Mary had a hard time being followed by a stalker.
Yeah, if it weren't for Rick,
Yeah, the usual Mary playing the victim after unilaterally dumping her ex story. Even after more than 10 years, Mary's tactics haven't changed. This is hopeless. I don't have the heart or the capacity to win him back after this. As if to flaunt it in my pale face, they left the room, and they seemed to have gone to inform our parents right away. When my parents heard of Mary's pregnancy, they were panicked, but they quickly agreed to break off my engagement and approve of their marriage. In the end, my parents favored Mary over me.
It's your fault for not satisfying him, Lucy. It's sad for Mary and the baby, so you should give him up.
My heart turned cold at the words of my parents, who had no words of comfort and that I was at fault. Mary, smiling triumphantly behind them, finally made me snap. What about the wedding? The invitations have already been sent out, and there will be cancellation fees.
It's okay. I'll step in as the bride instead of you.
What? What is she talking about?
There's no better venue around than the one Lucy chose, and since I'm 3 months pregnant, it seems just right. We need to save money for our baby.
What is she really saying?
Mary, what a good girl you are.
What is this man saying?
Mary's smart. No need to resend invitations. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Oh, and make sure Lucy inform your friends and workplace about the cancellation. We're inviting Mary's friends instead.
This mother is also a problem. There are only unreasonable people here. In their minds, it's all set for Mary and Rick to marry, and my wishes are nowhere to be found. I truly feel like I'm losing my mind with everyone being so irrational.
Lucy, I'm sorry for finding happiness before you.
Seeing my sister tearfully tilt her head like that even makes me feel nauseous. It's painful and humiliating, but I have no allies, and there's already a life growing inside Mary. I had no choice but to accept their marriage. Yet, I won't wish them happiness. Just because they're family doesn't mean I'll forgive them. You all discarded me first. After that, I did as my mom said and informed my friends and workplace about the broken engagement. Everyone was surprised and worried when they heard it was a shotgun wedding between my sister and my fiance. And they were speechless to learn the wedding would go ahead with the bride switched. My boss immediately canceled my transfer back home and promised me a position near the store where I had worked for a long time. My friends were furious as if it were their own issue and suggested, "Let's go on a trip when you feel better." Though I was unlucky with my family and boyfriend, I was truly fortunate to be surrounded by supportive people. I personally informed all the main contacts about the broken engagement and finished what I had to do. And then, on the wedding day, of course, I wasn't allowed to attend, nor did I want to. I had loaded my luggage into my friend's truck, which had already been brought into the apartment where Rick and I were going to live. Apparently, Mary and Rick will be living in this room from tomorrow. Although I managed to move back to the state I previously lived in, I had already canceled my old apartment lease, so finding a new place was a hassle. Just when I was relieved that I could move out today, my phone rang. As soon as I answered, I could hear my mom shouting,
Lucy, Get to the wedding venue right now.
What? But I'm not supposed to attend.
Just come.
Unable to argue with my mom's insistence, I reluctantly agreed. I had half expected to be summoned anyway. Glancing at the clock, it was just before 3 p.m., probably the break between the ceremony and the reception. Just in case, I dressed in the formal dress I had prepared and headed to the venue in my friend's truck. Guided by the staff, I entered the reception hall and saw that the number of attendees didn't even fill half of the 80-person capacity venue. On the bride's side, there were mostly relatives. On the groom's side, just Rick's parents and his friends. There was one woman sitting alone at the bride's table, wearing a pure white dress that suggested she was the bride, chugging red wine. Naturally, Rick looked pale at the high table, and Mary was visibly in a bad mood. Seeing me, my mom strode over with large steps.
Lucy, explain to everyone, will you?
What am I supposed to explain?
Tell them this marriage is harmonious. Our relatives are suspicious, and his relatives aren't even attending.
There's really no other way to put it. I don't know how they explained the bride changing from older sister to younger sister, but anyone with common sense would be suspicious since the groom's name remained the same.
This will ruin Mary's big day. Please, do something about it.
Pushed by my panicking mom, I was dragged next to the high table. A confused staff member handed me a microphone, and I reluctantly began to speak. Rick, Mary, congratulations on your wedding. As the bride's sister, I wish you both happiness.
Lucy.
Rick's eyes moistened, and Mary smiled contentedly. What do these people think I am? Do you think I will congratulate my sister for stealing my fiance?
Hey.
Ignoring the stunned bride and groom, I turned to face the attendees. The bride and groom have verbally abused me, and our parents told me I lacked the charms of a woman and unilaterally had my engagement broken off. I was told not to come to the wedding, but as soon as they realized it was not convenient for them, I was called out. My mom says to tell everyone this marriage is harmonious, but how could it be when my sister stole my fiance right from under me?
Lucy, stop it.
My mom glared at me with a furious red face. Rick was sweating bullets, and Mary was staring straight ahead with a serious face. Then, from a round table, a smattering of applause broke out. It was a woman in a white dress, attending alone as a friend of the bride. She stood up, clicking her high heels as she moved to stand next to me, the strong smell of alcohol making me wince.
Lucy, can I make a speech too?
Go ahead. Having no real reason to object, I handed her the microphone, and she smiled broadly before beginning.
I'm Lisa, a friend of Mary. Sorry for being so drunk. Congratulations on your marriage, Mary. By the way, your husband is, Mike, was it?
What?
Rick looked confused, called by a name he didn't recognize.
Oh, wrong, sorry. Mike was my ex-boyfriend from college. Mary took him from me.
Really?
So is it Steve, Nate, David, Ray, Leo, Jake?
What do you mean?
As more men's names were thrown out, not only Rick but the entire venue began to murmur. Lisa, unfazed, turned towards Mary.
Remember, all the men you stole from others, right? There were others, but honestly, I've forgotten since there were like 30 men.
The venue buzzed even louder. I was shocked at the number, but it made sense if it was Mary. Mary glared at Lisa for a moment but soon put on her trademark tearful face.
It's so mean, Lucy and Lisa. I'm not that terrible of a girl, right, Rick?
That's right. I chose Mary over Lucy because Lucy was terrible to me.
So you admit in front of everyone that you dumped me for my sister?
Oh, no.
Rick looks panicked. Mary froze for a second, but being the manipulator she is, she quickly recovered and tried to frame me and Lisa as the villains.
It's true Rick was engaged to Lucy, but Lucy was so cold to him. I was just comforting him.
Lisa snorted derisively at Mary's tearful eyes.
Sure, always the same tactic. Painting ex-boyfriends and their girlfriends as the bad ones to snag the guy you want.
I didn't do anything that bad.
Then why am I the only friend of the bride here?
Well, that's because.
And is that child you got pregnant really Rick's?
What?
You were dating John until 5 months ago, weren't you?
Did I?
Rick looked shocked as he turned to Mary. Then Lisa, who seemed too sober for someone drunk, walked out of the venue and returned with a young man.
Mary.
No way.
Mary's complexion changed for the first time when the young man, who looked sad, called her name.
Are you the stalker who imagined you were dating Mary?
Rick stood up, eyes wide with anger, but Lisa scoffed.
No, that's not the story here. This man was Mary's boyfriend and my friend's ex-boyfriend. Just like you, he was another man stolen by Mary from another woman.
What?
Rick let out another surprised exclamation.
So, is the father of the baby in your belly the groom? What do you think, Lucy?
Lisa asked me cheerfully. I pondered for a moment and then answered with feigned difficulty. I'm not sure. Maybe there are other potential dads.
True, that's possible.
Lisa burst into laughter, finding my answer amusing. The venue, unable to follow the unfolding story, along with the parents, were stunned. I apologized to the attendees who got involved. I apologize for displaying such an ugly dispute in front of all the guests who attended today amidst their busy schedules. I will take my leave now.
Hey, Lucy.
Goodbye, Rick. I'll be sending you the bill for damages later.
What?
You can't escape this. I've already arranged it with your parents.
What the heck?
Rick looked back in shock. Since the wedding reception began, he had forgotten that his parents had been glaring at him all along. Yes, I had made a point of visiting Rick's in-laws after the engagement was broken off. Despite the embarrassing circumstances, when I explained the situation honestly, they were quite outraged. Actually, I had become close with Rick's mom during our engagement, going shopping together and discussing wedding favors and dresses. Rick seemed to have completely forgotten all of that, conveniently thinking, my parents won't mind if I break off the engagement with a fiance I haven't seen much of to switch to her sister, Mary. Of course, his parents are not that unreasonable or unfeeling. Disappointed by their son's actions, they didn't oppose the marriage due to the child involved, but had already ensured that relatives and business associates would not attend. Well, considering their son made a spectacle of himself at the wedding, they must be truly relieved they didn't invite their relatives. The wedding, already thrown into chaos by the bride's real sister and a friend exposing her misdeeds, and the appearance of an ex-boyfriend possibly being the father of her unborn child, was in a complete mess. Staff and organizers, confused, were huddled in a corner discussing. I didn't want to cause any more trouble for the venue, so I quickly made my exit. Lisa followed me out. We silently high-fived and then went our separate ways. I got into my friend's truck waiting in the parking lot, loaded all my belongings, and drove straight to my new apartment. I turned off my continuously buzzing smartphone. I left my hometown feeling refreshed. Afterwards, the wedding became so chaotic that it had to be canceled. It seems Rick and Mary's ex-boyfriend John pressed her about who the father of her child was, but Mary stubbornly insisted it was Rick's. Learning of his darling daughter's scandalous life, my dad's blood pressure skyrocketed, landing him in the hospital. Despite the shock, my mom remained steadfastly on Mary's side, and when I came with a lawyer to demand alimony from me, she glared at me as if I were the devil. Unperturbed by their dire situation, I firmly collected the alimony I was entitled to. I spent the alimony on a trip with my friends who supported me through everything and saved the rest. Now I live peacefully in a place where my sister and parents can't bother me. To me, it's happily ever after, but it seems not for them. A year after my sister's wedding, as I was leaving work, Rick suddenly confronted me. He had found out where I worked because my name and photo were on the company's instructor introduction page.
We were deceived.
As soon as he saw me, Rick shouted,
The child that she bore isn't mine. She's a witch who tore us apart.
I had heard from my mom's one-sided phone calls that apparently the father of Mary's child was indeed John. That stuff. At my words, Rick's eyes filled with tears.
Lucy, you're the only one who ever truly loved me. I'm going to leave that devil. Let's start over here, just the two of us. Together, we can overcome any difficulty.
Rick gently took my hand. I forcefully pushed it away. Are you out of your mind?
What?
There's no way I would start over with you.
Why? I was just deceived by her.
Don't play the victim. Even if you were deceived by Mary, it doesn't erase the fact that you hurt me.
But
Besides, it sounds like your troubles are just yours. I heard your brother took over as the heir.
say no more.
Indeed, this man had been labeled as a hopeless by his parents during the marriage debacle and had been stripped of his heir status. A man who can't be faithful to his wife can hardly run a company faithfully, his parents had wisely decided. He had left his job in anticipation of taking over the family business and was now unemployed. Rejected by his old workplace and desperately job hunting. I'm not struggling like you. There's no benefit to me in getting back with you, and I have absolutely no sentiment for you.
Benefit, huh? It's because you're such a calculating woman that you got dumped.
Yeah, and clinging to the woman who dumped you isn't calculating?
Shut up.
Unable to retort against the solid logic, Rick grunted with a red face. Then my colleagues gathered to find us arguing.
Is he the guy? The one who was duped by Playgirl's sister and ended up unemployed, right?
That's right.
What do you want with Lucy now? Don't you have any pride?
If you do anything to Lucy, these muscles won't stay silent.
Surrounded by muscular and towering men, Rick let out a whimper and ran away. He appeared at my workplace a few times after that, but gave up to my colleagues' ironclad defense. 3 years later, I had thought I was done with relationships, but then I met a man with whom I incredibly clicked. He also loved jogging, and we met while running in the park early in the morning. After we started dating and I found out he was running a company, I hesitated because of the trauma I had experienced with Rick. Then, just when things were settling, after her divorce from Rick was finally settled, Mary appeared before me. Of course, I no longer regarded her as a sister. There was no way I was going to let this home wreck her anywhere near my precious partner. Yet somehow, she found out where we were shopping and having tea and showed up.
Lucy, long time no see.
In her typical manner, and as if it were the most natural thing in the world, she showed great interest in my boyfriend and aggressively flirted. I wonder if I'll ever be free from this monster. But this time was different. He brushed off Mary's touchy-feely hands, and he said,
"You're disgusting. Do you really just want any man you see? I've never seen anything like you, but how could you ever think such vulgar behavior would attract a man? I feel sick just watching."
Seeing him stand so firmly, I felt reassured and decided to marry him. After her divorce, Mary did not end up marrying John, the actual father of her child. It seems John finally woke up from Mary's manipulation during the wedding fiasco and realized she was bad news. After being harshly rejected by my boyfriend, which wounded her female pride, Mary threw herself at various men and even got involved with several married men. However, her affairs were quickly discovered by their wives, and she has been heavily sued for alimony by each. Naturally, my mom came crying to me for help, but there was no way I was going to cover for her. Mary has had to work nonstop to pay off her debts, and it seems her once prized skin and hair have deteriorated badly. Now looking over 10 years older, it's unlikely any man will be deceived by Mary again. As for Mary's child, thankfully, he is being raised without any trouble by John's parents. I'm really glad that her child didn't end up in a bad situation. Then, a few more years later, I continued to work at the sports gym while raising my children. We could live comfortably on my husband's earnings alone, but I love my job. While I do help out as a CEO's wife, it's not too much of a burden. On weekend mornings, I have the luxury of jogging with my husband and our children.
You always look so young. How do you stay so beautiful?
An older gym member once asked enviously. Maybe it's because I get to do a job I love with the support of my family. Despite saying it myself, I felt a bit embarrassed and couldn't help but laugh. Life has been challenging, often not going as planned, especially since I wasn't blessed with supportive parents or a sister. But meeting a husband who accepts me entirely has made all the difference. All's well that ends well. Today, I'm enjoying another day filled with sports, sipping on a protein shake made by my husband.